Hey you! Have you ever thought about how cool it is that your favorite character from a game or anime changes, adapts, and overcomes any and all obstacles in their way? Well, I'm here to tell you that this also happens in real life too, and how environmental implications on beings have been in your face all along through a process called phenotypic plasticity. You know Kirby, right? This pink little freak that eats just about anything and absorbs their exact power and defense mechanisms? What if I tell you he's a real creature? No, I'm not telling you that Kirby is a real being and that King Dedede is going to destroy the world to get him. But there is actually a creature deep in the sea that absorbs its foes through the same exact power, phenotypic plasticity. What critter exactly? Nudibranchs. These small sea slugs do pretty much all sorts of things, with the coolest being their power of absorption.
It's stealing both those nematocysts and even the dinoflagellates, the symbiodinium, the zooxanthellae. They store those stinging nematocysts and the zooxanthellae inside those cerata, so that when they break off, when a predator, let's say a wrasse or something, gets a mouthful of a big XL Bergia, those cerata sting the mouth of that predator.
A classic case of phenotypic plasticity. Wait a minute, backtrack. What is phenotypic plasticity, you ask? Well, I'll tell you. Not because you asked, but it's because it's for the plot. So, phenotypic plasticity is basically an organism's ability to change its phenotype, or its traits, in response to environmental variation, be it temporary or permanent. Even though its genotype remains the same, its traits and visible characteristics change actively in response to its environment. And I know that in school, you were probably told that our traits just come from our parents, and that's the only thing that causes us to have the characteristics that we have. However, you're missing one key component: the environment. You know, this thing right here? Probably haven't heard of it, have you? You know, when people said to touch grass, this is what they meant. What about this environment? Wait, working out? How is this an environment? This doesn't look like grass, or even phenotypic plasticity. And yeah, this too. All of these are great examples of how the environment can physiologically change a person or species, not because their genes are changing, but the way their genes are reacting to the environment. Working out, for example, at the Diamond Gym doesn't turn on the muscle-building gene that people are born with, as many may believe. Rather, yelling in your face while you throw your back out lifting 500 pounds causes the genes responsible for increasing adrenaline, muscle building, testosterone, and muscle fiber repair to start overfiring in response to the heavy weight and micro tears. Or even this guy being alone at a party, the stressful environment increasing his gene's expression of cortisol, norepinephrine, spiking his stress levels, heart rate, and blood pressure. These types of things happen all the time too in our day-to-day lives, but surprisingly, even in the media we consume and the video games we play that we never even think about. Even many of the video games we play or grew up playing are solid examples of phenotypic plasticity, and are really useful in explaining just how it works. And I think the most prominent example that even non-gamers recognize is Pokemon. First of all, shout out Necrozma, my goat, right? But how does Pokemon talk about the environment or even phenotypic plasticity? Well, think about the exact same Pokemon that can be seen across multiple regions or typings. Let's look at Castform, for example. Just this cloud thing. Normal type. However, when exposed to different weather conditions, like rain, sun, or snow, it changes not only its appearance, but its type too. See? The thing is, the total number between all of its stats don't change, nor do its abilities. However, its stats are totally rearranged with more emphasis on one over the other to be best suited in that environment, like maxing out its special attack and speed in the sun, and changing its typing to fire to blend into other fire types. But once again, this isn't the only example that we have of phenotypic plasticity in video games. Let's go back to that great example of Kirby. You might be thinking, they don't look like Kirby. But they're the same. I'm telling you, they're the same. Just like Kirby, these little guys eat well-known underwater stinging bad guys such as jellyfish, coral, anemones, and reuse their defense mechanisms, in this case, nematocysts or stinging cells, to defend against other predators. But how exactly? Well, because of phenotypic plasticity, the nudibranch's body detects proteins or lipids from the jellyfish at the molecular level, and that instantly triggers enhanced gene expression responsible for thicker mucus, antitoxins, or whatever else it needs from its large library of defensive genes. It's almost like us humans, how if we're in the bath too long and our fingers get wrinkly, that's actually our body, in the moment, adapting so that we can have better grip. To further curbify, once the stinging cells are ingested, the nudibranch's special adaptive mucus carries those stinging cells like a fragile marked package through the gut, where it acts like a distribution center for every part of the nudibranch. Once moved to those pointy things on its back, the serrata, it can use those same stinging cells to defend against its own predators, like big fish or spooky scaries in the ocean. Ain't that just neat? And it's not just the nematocysts that can adapt to. We're talking plants, algal chloroplasts, and even becoming photosynthetic, effectively creating their own food. What about sponges, where they can reuse what is effectively underwater fiberglass to stab fish with needles? They can even eat different pigments and camouflage. Essentially, Kirby in real life. And you can't change my mind. That's just one of the more notable things amongst the infinite number of examples of phenotypic plasticity. But it's everywhere you go if you take a closer look. Even you, the viewer, experience phenotypic plasticity on a daily basis. Remember the example from the Diamond Gym? I know that the average gamer might not care for big lifts or adrenaline from almost being crushed to death, but you and I definitely experience adrenaline and other brain chemicals when we're down on the count, 1v5, clutch or kicked in a ranked match. And just like in the gym, when you're in that high-stress environment and your team is counting on you, the genes in your body that account for adrenaline, norepinephrine, acetylcholine for visual precision, imagine me with my 80% aim accuracy, and many more, rapidly fire and are expressed more intensely. That is phenotypic plasticity happening right on your couch, just as intensely and just as frequently as the mucus in a slug, plants under the sun, or flowers in drought. And that's why it's so important to recognize that the environment is so interconnected in everything we do, even media, and our characters on our favorite video games. But I haven't yet answered the question, why is knowing this even important? What does it even matter to you, the viewer, the gamer? That the environment is even affecting you while you sleep, eat, or lift, or even game. It's because of how we as a society view genes as a whole. Unsurprisingly, most people really don't know how gene expression actually functions. Like those preconceived notions I mentioned earlier, many people believe that genes equal traits, and that's it. Can we take a guess at why that might be bad? Well, we can actually explain this if we even just look at any racist or stereotypical Family Guy bit, or even just a regular Fox News episode. I'll even give you some examples that hit close to home for me, as a brown man, with a family of all shades and cultures. Do you ever hear weird stereotypes about your culture, or skin color? Whether good intentioned or not, many of these ideas of X race is smarter, X race is faster, X race is more athletic, X race is more prone to crime, they're all rooted in our simple way of genetic understanding, and it only gets worse through media and news outlets. For example, if you've ever seen Fox News over the past couple of years, I'm sure you've seen countless examples of how Mexicans, my culture, is described as being dangerous, as dirty, as uneducated, or really, even as diseased.
We have a moral obligation to admit the world's poor, they tell us, even if it makes our own country poorer and dirtier and more divided.
And this way of thinking has unfortunately been present for as long as we've been human. If we look back at early colonizers, we've seen countless examples of how people of color have been described as uneducated, dimwits, or just pawns. And this is exactly why it is so important, critical, that people, students, researchers understand how phenotypic plasticity actually works, how the environment is directly affecting how the gene is expressing different traits. We are not just a combination of our genes. We are a product of our environment. The world is what makes us. So just as a Minecraft zombie turns into a drowned when it's in water, or a skeleton turning into a stray in the snow biome, the same thing happens in real life. We are influenced by our environment. We are not solely determined by our genes. So now, I kind of want you to think for a minute just about how phenotypic plasticity and the environment affects your life, rules what you do, and changes how you think, not only about people, but animals as well. The grass around you, the trees. How often do you see the environment playing a role in your favorite video game? next time you pick up a controller, think about the villains you fight, or the mobs you encounter, and how they shift from region to region. And why?